Good morning. My name is Ian, known as WanderBeard around these parts, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are in a new country, a new city, and today we are off on a new adventure as well. I have arrived in Nicaragua. I came here from Honduras, and I arrived day before yesterday, but very late at night. And yeah, so far it's been a great experience. I went out and did a bit of a wander around yesterday just to kind of get a feel for the town. And today I thought what we would do is, instead of showing you Nicaragua's León as it is today, I thought we would go for a little adventure and show you where the original León was, its history, and look at that. So today we're going to head out to León Viejo, which is where the original León settlement was when it was first settled by the Spanish in the 1500s. And then a catastrophe occurred in the early 1600s that left the town devastated, and everyone had to get up and move and came to here where León is today. Just had a really nice little breakfast here to start the day off at Gourmet Cafe, just up here, not too far from where I'm staying here in León. And I'll put the picture there on the screen, but that was great, delicious, and I am ready to go. So we just had to walk up this road here about 4 blocks or so to get to the market bus station. We will hop on our first bus to the town of La Paz, where we will then switch to a second bus to get to León Viejo. So let's go. Hi. Welcome to the chaos that is the bus station here in León. Thankfully, everyone's very helpful, so I was able to ask a guy and ask him for the bus to get to León Viejo, and he said it's the last bus over here. Just got to the first bus here for La Paz Centro, so just waiting for it to depart. And then when we get there, we'll hop on the next bus over to León Viejo. Welcome to the ruins of León Viejo. This is the original settlement that was founded by the Spanish in 1524 and remained here until 1610, at which time the volcano, which we will see in a little bit, exploded, erupted. There was a series of earthquakes which flattened the city, and as a result, everyone who was living here at the time ended up moving to where León is today. So let's go inside, get our tickets, and go for an exploration. So the ticket here for entry for foreigners is 365 Cordoba, which is about $10 Canadian, I think. So we are going to head this way into the park. It actually comes with a guide if you want one in Spanish. I believe that maybe during the weekdays they also have English guides, but not today. I should mention before I get started, when you come here Monday to Saturday, there are buses that go from León to La Paz, and then at the last stop in La Paz There are buses that go from there to here in town, where you then have to walk the last, I don't know, half a kilometer or so to get to the park. On Sundays, which is when I'm here, there is no bus from La Paz to the ruins. So you have to take a tuk-tuk for the last stretch, which cost me in this case 180 Cordoba, more or less, which is about $4 US, which was great because it actually dropped me off right here at the front gate. Also on Sundays, it's good to know that the last bus from La Paz back to León is about 5 o'clock. So don't wait too long to get back to La Paz to get on the bus. So we are here in what's known as the city of León de Negrando, which was founded in 1524 by the conquest captain Francisco Hernandez de Cordoba under the orders of the governor of Darien and Panama. It was given the name León in reference to the city of the same name in Spain and designated as the capital of the province of Nicaragua. The structures that were built here were, used with indigenous labor following architecture of the time, which was, huts of straw, earth walls, brick walls, clay tile roofs. And then the city was inhabited, as I said, until 1610, or for 86 years. And frequent earthquakes caused by the Momotombo volcano ended up being sort of the final straw, I guess, for the city. So as I mentioned, in 2000, this became a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the first in the country. If you remember from my video in El Salvador, when I went to Hoya de Serén outside San Salvador, I mentioned I always try to make a point of visiting UNESCO World Heritage Sites when possible, because it's pretty important to learn about our history and understand it. And in this case, what was really cool about here was that because the volcano covered it up, while it wiped out most of the buildings, a lot of the foundations and stuff remained behind, which have been excavated and are here to view today. So here's a kind of a map of the former town of what is now León Viejo. And you can see here on the right, this is where we're going to start. And we're just going to take a walk up through the center here, up to what they call Calle Real, Royal Street, if you will, past the main square, and then we'll loop back where you can see things like the fortress, and then we'll get a nice shot of the volcano at the end. So we're just sort of come up to one of the first buildings here that's been excavated. This was built obviously during the heyday of León Viejo, and this was an administrative building that was here at the front of the town. You can see that they've been able to excavate, some of the foundation, and then they kind of dug out the whole area around it to kind of give you an idea of its size. It's a very cool spot because, as you saw from that map, they've kind of got a layout of the whole town to give you an idea of sort of what it looked like at the time. And it's very cool that it's been able to be restored in this way, so that you don't have these recreations of buildings. You just have the original foundations as they were found. And this also gives you an idea of, when the volcano erupted and buried everything, just how far down these places were at the time, and how much earth has accumulated on top. There's a tour group in front of me, so I'm just taking my time, but we're going to go up here and then head down here to the left. Another example here of a foundational wall that has been dug back up from one of the buildings that was here at the time. This park is really nice. There's a lot of green space. They've got a lot of different trees here, and there's a nice breeze here too, so you kind of get that effect. We're going to split off from this group a little bit and head down this way in a minute. Take a look at one more up here first, and then we'll head down. It's another example here of the types of foundations that were here. This one's actually a bit more complex. I don't know if this floor is original or not. I don't see a sign here indicating one way or the other. My hunch is probably not, but the original wall foundations are here. And they've obviously been capped off since they were uncovered. But a cool spot. So if you can imagine, 500 years ago, last year actually, this place would have first been founded, 1524. And the Spanish arrived, they, of course, would have used local indigenous populations to help construct everything. I would say it was probably not voluntary at the time, but with those construction efforts, this town was able to be built up fairly quickly. Unfortunately, like I said, because of all the volcanic activity and the earthquakes and so forth, it made it very difficult for this town to sustain itself long term. So what we are looking at here, with this very impressive looking tree in the middle of it, was where the old Royal Council building used to sit between 1531 and 1545. During the city, it was the seat of the Spanish government, so this would have been their basically primary place that they would have worked out of. As I mentioned earlier, these ruins were excavated in 2013, but were first discovered back in 1967. In 82, there was actually a massive hurricane that blew through this part of the country and reburied everything. So all the efforts that they had in the late 70s to uncover these buildings and find this area were then had to be started over. So finally in 2013 they got the excavation here completed, and so now this is the town that remains today. So there's some really cool buildings, there's some larger buildings. I believe over there is the main cathedral. This statue in the center is the main square, and just over behind it in the distance, which you can just see through the trees, is Momotambo volcano, which is still active to today. It has erupted several times in the last 30 to 40 years, and it is the primary reason why this town did not survive. We're going to take a walk over this way to what we'll call the far end of town, and there's a very large structure over here too that is worth seeing. So it may not look like it or look like much today, but this is what's known as Calle Real, or the Royal Road, which would have run through town. It was about 300 meters in length in total. And if you can imagine, people like the town crier would have rode up and down this road on horseback and carriage, perhaps, reading off proclamations and so forth. Again, so there's sort of the main square where that statue is, and you can see how it runs all the way along here. So this large building here next to the Royal Road, you can see there's a sign here, but basically this was a large building. It encompassed about 800 square meters. So this building, which is quite large, was built in 1528 initially, and suffered from a fire because it was initially built out of wood and thatched roof. So then in 1544, they actually reconstructed it with, brick and tile, which is the foundation you see that's still here today. This building of interest was because this is where gold, after being mined, was melted down. The king's seal was then stamped onto the gold, and the gold was then, of course, shipped back to Spain. And you can see there's a large number of different rooms here. I would say probably a dozen or so in total. And the sign kind of indicates that there was probably more to go. It's just that they haven't excavated the rest of it yet. We're going to continue our little walk up the Royal Road here just a bit, as there are some more structures up here. It's interesting standing here, knowing that, there were hundreds of people living here 500 years ago, and now there's nobody left except the basic outlines of their structures. So it's one of those moments again where I feel like you're almost walking back in time a little bit. So this next place, if it looks like it's a big house, that's because it was. This is the home of Gonzalo Cano, who was an attorney for the governor and was a very wealthy merchant here in the city at the time. This place was built between 1535 and 1550. And I don't know if we'll see them or not. I think we will. The original tile floor that was in this building still exists today here. So yeah, here's the original tile herringbone style flooring that was part of this, I'm going to call it a mansion because the place was huge. And you can see it had plenty of large defined rooms and also had this, I'm going to guess, outcrop area, which was another large part of the building. Just a massive complex. We've actually got a roof over it here to kind of protect the tile floor a little bit. But you can even see here there was like a curved entryway. And you know, what's nice about somewhere like this is that there's not a lot of mystery necessarily about what these buildings were for, who lived in them at the time, because by the 1500s there would of course been very detailed records of the inhabitants of the city, who was living where, through census and those types of things. So all that information would have been well documented at the time. It's fascinating to see how some of these buildings are above ground or above current ground level, while some of those first ones we saw were, you know, several meters below. So here we have, I'm going to hold my camera up a little higher to get over this wall. This was the Church of Our Lady of Mercy. And this one is an interesting one for sure. So this building was initially built back in 1526. And it started as just a simple hut. But then over time it was added to it. You know, initially with, you know, brick and mortar, and then they would have added the roof to it at that time. What's unique about this building, however, is that in 2000, there's like a crypt underneath that glass. And that crypt would have held the bodies of Captain Francisco Hernandez de Cordoba and Governor Davila. And they were uncovered in that crypt, which would have sat just below the main altar. I think I can actually go in over on the other side, so I'm going to take a walk around and go in and have a look at the crypt a bit closer. So this is the original crypt that was uncovered here in front of the altar where the bodies would have been discovered back in 2000. And you can see that it sits directly under where the main altar would have been here at the top of those stairs. You can really get a sense of the importance of this Calle Real with the church and, you know, the lawyer's house there and the factory where they would have melted down the gold, all being along this same stretch. Very peaceful in here. And there was only one other tour group that I saw when I came in, so pretty quiet on a Sunday. I believe this is the last building here on the street. Let's go in and take a look. So this last building here, which this part in the middle is covered up because of the original stairways and things like that are inside. This was an evangelization center that would have been founded in the city in 1528 by Friar Francisco de Bobadilla. And so this was a place where the Spanish would try to convert locals to the Christian faith. And this is also an interesting place because I don't know if you can see them very well here on the camera. I'll try to zoom in and I'll also get a picture with my phone camera. But if you see in the middle, there are 4 holes in the ground. And that is because in 1545, 4 people were murdered and dismembered and then buried in those burial spots. So in 2000, when a bunch of archaeological work was being done here and they uncovered those 4 graves here in the building, it was a combination of Spaniards and indigenous that were found here. So there was apparently a riot in the city in 1545, and that was the result of the riot. So we've just come up to the look-off point here, the Mirador, where they've got the sign, and this is Volcano Momotambo. So you can see just how close the town was here to the volcano. So not only is this the nice view of the volcano here from León Viejo, we're also standing where the fortress originally stood. So back in 1532, under the order of Francisco Hernández de Córdoba, he ordered that a fortress be built here up on the hill to guard the city. And where I'm standing is essentially where the tower originally was. It's a beautiful spot up here on the hill, overlooking, of course, the volcano, and one of the highest spots that would have been here in the original city. And you see all the way around, there's, you know, more mountains. Looks like almost like another, I think this is another volcano here, but I forget the name at the moment. I'll put it on the screen here if I figure it out. But just an absolutely beautiful place up here on the hill, overlooking the lake and the volcano. And you really get a sense of the history that was here 500 years ago. And what a struggle it must have been to try to maintain a city so far away from Spain here in what is now Nicaragua. Just gonna keep on taking a little walk here down. We're just heading back down the hill from where that Mirador look off, where the old fortress was, and heading back down towards the center square. It's a really cool place, and I'm sure there are others like it in the world, but for me, this is certainly a unique destination so far. So this house here, which is the first one we've come to since we left the Mirador, was known as Ana Jimenez's house, which was built in 1531. And it was one of the first permanent houses built here in León Viejo. It was also an inn of sorts where the wives of conquistadors would stay as they were coming to the city. So this monument is here in remembrance of the indigenous resistance in 1528 that rose up against the Spanish who had moved in here a few years prior. This is also where the town square would have been at the time. This would have been the center of commerce, of, you know, just population and people rumbling about all around this area. And the significance of this spot is that, as we saw earlier, was the town hall building behind it. So that is on the west side of the building. To the north of it, where these trees are now, would have been the governor's house. This was the Cathedral of Santa Maria here, which we're going to take a look at in a moment. And then, of course, to the south was the Calle Real, which we walked down earlier, and the smelting house where they would mine the gold and melt it down. So this was a very distinct central spot here in the city, and you can see this, this would have been quite the spot 500 years ago with all the people that would have been here. Again, there's that house, Ana Jimenez, which was one of the first houses that was permanently settled here. Let's go over and have a look at the Cathedral of Santa Maria. So I think we can take a walk inside here. It's a massive building. So when this was originally constructed, it was originally constructed as just quote unquote, a church. However, because of its prominence here within the city of León and the region, it was later anointed a cathedral by Pope Paul III in Spain. Its original name was the Church of Our Lady of La Piedad, and then once it was elevated to a cathedral in 1534, its name became the Cathedral of Santa Maria de las Gracias. And it was the seat of the bishop for the entirety of Nicaragua and Costa Rica. They did some additional archaeological digging here in 2001 around this cathedral, and actually found the bodies of what are believed to be the first 3 bishops that were connected to this cathedral. Just one thing to point out is that when I first came in and I saw these first 3 dugouts here, I thought these were separate buildings. This is actually the governor's mansion that would have sat on the square, because there's the statue just over there. So the governor's mansion was quite large, to say the least. Anyway, let's see if we can check out this little museum that they have here, and then we will head back to León, as I do not want to miss the last bus. So the last stop here before we head out is this museum. And this museum is a combination, I believe, without having looked at the whole thing yet, of indigenous artifacts as well as Spanish artifacts that were found here. My first glance is that this looks like it's primarily indigenous, which is really cool to see. So you've got all kinds of different dishes and bowls. These are all dated 300 to 800 AD. You can see the design on this one with the spikes on the outside of the bowl. Very cool looking. There's some more here. It's a figurine. This is a feminine figurine from 300 to 800 AD. And then some bowls with some really cool painting on the inside. Some more examples here, again, from the same sort of time period. I really like these bowls with the feet on them. I wish they still made those today, actually, because I think they'd be really cool. You can put them down on the table, and your table doesn't get too hot, and you pick it up by the feet, and your hands don't get too hot. It's perfect. So this last display case has these really cool carvings, and these were all unique, and they were of warrior men from different tribes, including Nicaragua's Chorotegas and Chontales. And these were basically idols that the warriors would use to gain favor with their gods. Yeah, so every one of them is unique in its design. Very, very cool stuff. And then they've got some other examples here, some other stuff that they have found in the region. Things like more of those stamps like we saw in Honduras and other places. Chisels, axe heads, and mortars. Very cool. A little museum here to pay tribute to the indigenous peoples that lived here before the Spanish arrived in 1524. So that's going to do it for our tour of León Viejo here outside the city of León in Nicaragua. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. Thank you so much for watching as always. If you did, leave a like or a comment down below to let me know that you were here. If this is your first time coming across my channel, please feel free to subscribe. It does not cost you anything, and I certainly appreciate it. If you would like to support me further, there's a few different ways you can do that. The first is I have some memberships set up here on YouTube. There's 3 tiers. They start at just $3 Canadian per month, and those are a really great way to support me on an ongoing basis. If you prefer a one-time donation, there are links here for Bitcoin and PayPal. And I also have a merchandise store set up with hats and t-shirts and hoodies and mugs and all that sort of stuff for sale. And remember, life is short. Wander. And I'll see you in the next video.